Hey, everybody, and we are live on a Thursday afternoon at lunchtime, spring break for many people in this area, so it will be a somewhat abbreviated episode today. But I've got a topic that is near and dear to everyone's hearts. I am going to explain what TAP means. And what I mean by that is so many people get out. I was one of them when I first got out that said TAP is broken, TAP needs to get fixed, TAP can be better. And everyone says that, and I can probably count on one hand the number of people that actually understand what the transition assistant program means and all the elements that are incorporated and available to everyone getting out. And so let's take a deep dive into TAP so I can explain that to all of you so you can educate others and maybe share resources with those in your community. Before I get started, I wanted to call out one of our partners, and I want to thank CalmSeas Psychotherapy. CalmSeas is made specifically for military and law enforcement therapy. They work with the actual service members, law enforcement veterans. They also work with family members. They're covered by TRICARE and all the insurance agencies, and a lot of their therapists are actually military spouses. So Sharon, the CEO and founder, is someone we've worked with quite a bit. I love speaking with her. And so if you're considering or if you're looking for some therapy, they have a lot of remote therapy therapists that you can use. I would reach out to CalmSeas and keep an eye on it. All right. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I want to get into TAP. If you have any questions that are TAP related or any comments you want to share, let me know along the way as we can discuss it. So as some of you may know, in 2023, I believe it was, I testified before Congress on improvements to TAP, right? About 6 months before, they brought me in for a closed door roundtable with the House Economic Opportunity Committee for Veterans from the House Veteran Affairs Committee, the HVAC. I shared some of my thoughts about TAP, and the biggest things are probably not the things that you guys would all think of. The first thing is, I said there needs to be somebody in charge. I'll get to that in a minute. 2, I said they need to distribute the curriculum, so there should be an online digital library that people can access any of the classes anytime from anywhere. You should be able to pull out a mobile device, pop in earbuds, and take a class, or look up if you have a question and get resources. They should have live webinars with qualified experts for each of the topics they do that people could sign into, and kind of like my Mastering LinkedIn webinars. They could even have call centers like the Navy started doing, where you can book time with a career coach virtually and share resumes, get information, introductions, and things like that. Those were the big topics that I talked about. I just don't think it's possible to do it economically with the scale, the thousands and thousands and thousands of contractors and government employees that are involved in TAP as its current foundation. So we've got Gary in here. Gary, you may learn something today if you stick around. Thanks for joining us. Gary is the person I tell everyone to go to if they're considering transitioning from senior leader to HR. He'll explain it to you. He'll break it down to you. And I tell you to follow him. He does it all the time, and he does it well. All right, so let's get into TAP, the Transition Assistance Program. So TAP is not one thing. As a program, it is. But TAP is run by, so it's mandated by Congress. Congress mandated in the National Defense Authorization Act that service members start their transition no later than 365 days before their separation date, right? And when I went there was a Government Accountability Office report that said that like 40% of commanders were waiving that or late to get people to that. And Congress was very big on making sure they got fixed. So hopefully it's getting a little better. So Congress mandates the Transition Assistance Program starts no later than 365 days before separation. That basically means you go to the very first meeting and get the list of everything involved in TAP. Congress mandated that the Department of Defense create the SkillBridge program to support at-risk service members. I think that's why you see SkillBridge coming in from the side, and why a lot of the services are trying to get it away from the retirees and more towards the at-risk service members it was designed for. Doesn't mean no retirees. Commander should evaluate everything on its own individual basis, the opportunity, the service member, the situation, and the impact on the mission. But it was created for people that were expecting hardship on the back end of the transition. And it's a little hard to say that when someone's got a nice retirement coming. So that's the SkillBridge piece. That's another piece kind of in TAP. But the TAP program itself is managed by an interagency council. There's nobody in charge. So that interagency council consists of the Department of Defense, the Department of Labor, Veterans, DOL vets, and the VA, right? And whoever's running it like alternates between years on who's in charge. But basically, each one has their own separate element. So the Department of Defense owns what many of you would consider day one, which is when you come in, you find out everything, you go through the basic service-related stuff, all that stuff. They own 1 day of what everybody considers the 5-day must-do curriculum. The DoD is also supposed to be responsible for getting everyone there on time and providing support for the actual contract in the transition centers. So when you think about the Fleet and Family Service Centers, when you think about the transition centers on Army bases, and any contract support for the Air Force, Space Force, anything like that, those contractors that are in there are making sure you sign off on all your documents, that you schedule your appointments. When you turn in the final form that says you did everything, if they're not a government civilian, they're a contractor on this program. So that is the Department of Defense program. They do have some other requirements where they support other focuses. So like the Army has admin assistants. They also have education people. They also have career skills program facilitators, which is SkillBridge by a different name. But in general, they're doing the support to the overall transition program. Then you've got the Department of Labor Veterans, DOL vets. They control the Department of Labor workshops, right? And most of you think of it as one thing. It is not one thing. So you basically everybody gets 1 day, and it's called the Department of Labor Employment Fundamentals course, right? It's the 1 day everybody gets. And then you get to choose a 2-day track. There is a 2-day track on education. There's a 2-day track on vocational. There's a 2-day track on employment, which is what most of you choose. And then there's a 2-day track on entrepreneurship. There is nothing saying you can't do multiple 2-day tracks. Let me repeat that. There is nothing saying you can't do multiple 2-day tracks. There is nothing saying you can't go back into your transition center and ask the government people, the Department of Defense people, for additional classes. They have all kinds of additional courses they put together, right? But the typical person will do the 1-day Department of Defense class, the 1-day required everyone, the 2-day employment track, and then the last day is run by Veteran Affairs, the Department of Veteran Affairs. The VA has that last day where they're supposed to go through everything that's VA related, right? All right. So you've got your 5 days. I will tell you that is the minimum requirement mandated by Congress to make you kind of like career transition ready. Not a best candidate, not knowing what you're going to do, not job ready, because I'll tell you, the resumes I see come out of TAP, I'm not hiring off of unless they've done a lot of pre-work, but it gives you the minimum standards. In true military fashion, we train everyone to the what is it? The lowest common denominator. I don't say that in a mean way, but you train everyone up to a certain standard. It is up to you to go back in your transition center and get additional resources, to ask for additional classes, to attend additional tracks. Now, outside of that, we talk about the VA stuff. There are additional programs that the Department of Labor runs. So the Department of Labor runs the EMPP program, the Employer National Partnership Program. And they're on select basis. You can look up DOLEN, Echo November, Papa, Employer National Partnership Program reps, and you can go to them and ask for additional resources. They have a list of nonprofit and employer partners that they will refer you to directly. And those employer partners, we're one of them, go into the system, check the information, put our actions. So they're able to kind of track that things are being done. So that's the EMPP program. They're on select large bases. Check them out. And if they're there, go see them. Then you've got what most people have never heard of, which are the DOL state grant people. So you've got basically your leavers and DVOPs. So your leavers, local veteran employment representatives, and your DVOPs, disabled veteran outreach professionals, are typically located across the state in several locations, a lot of times in the American Job Center. If you don't know what American Job Center is, it's exactly what it is. It's a place to go to get employment help, local employment help, and it's run by the DOL. But the American Job Center will typically have your leavers and DVOPs. Your leavers, local veteran outreach local veteran employment resource representative. And then your DVOPs, disabled veteran outreach professionals. The leavers are there to help all veterans find jobs, focused on ones that are at risk, but they help you find jobs. They're to provide resources. They're funded by DOL through a state grant for these positions. They're local, so they're there to help you local. And so you should be able to look them up on just Google them. You can find where the local lever is, LVER. Disabled veteran outreach professionals do the same thing for disabled veterans, but they're your entry point in a lot of occasions for VRE, which many of us knew as Voc Rehab, vocational readiness and employment. So they're like, a lot of times they're your local entry points into getting the either vocational training or school funded. So, that is the way that you can do all of that, right? So you can get into your American Job Center for that. And then, I will just say that there isn't a resource, but you can also go to any of your VSOs. So you've got like the American Legion, you've got the Veteran of Foreign Wars, you've got Wounded Warrior Project, the big nonprofits. I think there's Paralyzed Veterans America, all the big veteran service organizations, or you can go to the only military service organization, the USO. The USO Transitions Program has support. They have transition specialists that will help you with concierge service, connect you with resources. So you've got all of these elements, and that's not talking about all the nonprofits that consist of TAP, and no one's in charge. And I think that's the biggest thing. No one is driving interoperability. No one is driving quality. No one is doing innovation. They're all doing innovation in silos. This is not a negative on anybody in charge. It's just you can't innovate an entire program when no one is really in charge and driving it. And so I just ask you all to consider all of this, and you can look at it. It'll be on our page regularly. Just consider this when you say TAP needs to get fixed. We got to get better than just saying TAP sucks, right? There are wonderful people that are dedicating their lives on TAP, and there are some that just got out and went right into a TAP role when they're doing their best. But I really don't believe anybody chooses to work in this space where every day you have 800 new people that never thought of the transition, never did any work. Nobody volunteers to do this, but to work in this space if you're not passionate about giving back. All right. So that is the TAP overview. In addition to TAP, I always like to talk about the nonprofits that I have worked with and kind of have vetted. I guess that's the right one. So when we talk about the nonprofits, the big ones are like the USO Transitions, where I do my webinars every month. The next one's April 24th. I think every service member should be going to the USO or go out, just Google USO Transitions and sign up and just get a transition specialist, and you use them whenever you need them. You need help with a resume. You're not sure how to negotiate salary. You don't know how to do certain things. You just call them up and say, hey, I need help. And they will either help you themselves or they will connect you to resources. So that's the USO. The other ones that I like to focus on are American Corporate Partners. You can Google them as well, acp-usa.org. ACP will provide you a mentor, typically from a Fortune 500 company, for a year. So the founder said, good friend, watched the second plane hit the World Trade Center. He's an investment banker at the time. He retired. And this is his passion, giving back to our community. So you will apply online. An operations associate will reach out and connect with you. They will give you a document to fill out that includes like career goals, background, experience, things like that, so that they can pair you with the right mentor at the right level that aligns with your career goals. You can choose male or female if that's important to you. You can choose veteran, non-veteran, like all those things. But they will connect you someone that agrees to spend, an hour, 2 hours a month with you for an entire year. So just think about the value of having someone like that building relationships. So that's American Corporate Partners. Hire Heroes USA does a great job with reviewing resumes and providing you feedback to resumes. Onward to Opportunity, which is under Syracuse Institute for Veterans and Military Families under Syracuse University. They will give you the online training to earn a certificate. So like PMP, Lean Six Sigma, PHRS, PHR, CISSP, A+, Sec+, whatever. They will give you the training to earn that cert, and they will pay for one exam. The beautiful thing about O2O is they work for service members, veterans, military spouses, and veteran spouses. The only catch, don't do the SkillBridge one. They may get mad at me for saying this, but they're on some bases, and to get on bases, they needed to be a career skills program or SkillBridge program. Do not waste your SkillBridge opportunity for a 5-day workshop to get the cert. Sign up for the cert remote and get your SkillBridge the traditional way, one that's going to hopefully lead to a job offer. So you've got Onwards to Opportunity, service members, veterans, military spouses, veteran spouses. And then when it comes to SkillBridge or the Career Skills Program, same thing. My advice to everyone is to treat it like the job search. So you start talking to your commanders early, get approval, figure out what your timelines is, what your approval is. You know, sometimes you may have to say like, hey, so-and-so is going to cover this or whatever, and then apply for everything. And what I mean by this is look up, first of all, obviously, go to hiremilitary.us and look at what we have, or join our talent pool. It takes a couple minutes. Then go check out the corporate fellowship program with Hiring Our Heroes. See what they have and apply. Go to your transition center. See what's available there. If you're moving, call the largest base transition center or educational service office near where you're moving to. Call those bases and see what programs they have, because many have local programs, right? Get on the DoD SkillBridge website, the official DoD SkillBridge website, and look through all the approved partners there and send out notes to them. Treat it like a job search. Put in a bunch of applications, right? And at the end of the day, choose the best one for you, right? So if you get one from HOH and you get one from Hire Military and you get one from the DoD SkillBridge website, maybe you get with Heroes Make America, you got 4 offers right there. You need to look at each opportunity on its own merits as it will apply to your next career. So look at, is their headcount? Will it lead to a job? How many people have they hired previously? What is the job? What's the salary I'll make? What's the lifestyle going to be like on the back end? Make the best decision for you. And that's the SkillBridge program. And so, as I go over this entire program, I will share, some of these hits. Jose says USO has been great. HOH Career Forward, O2O, Hire Heroes USA, all great. Yep. This is the one thing I'll tell people is use every one I mentioned. Sign up for every single one of them. Some people have different experiences than others. Some need different help than others. Some programs work better for others. Another one that I like is 4Block. 4Block has locations around the country, and they take you to companies and they do training sessions. We used to host 4Block at EY when I was there. So there's a lot of different programs out there. The idea is get as much support as possible and, put the effort in to make yourself the best candidate you can. And then we've got Jose saying, search, talk to multiple. I don't know what an SKB program is, maybe SkillBridge program. But I will just tell you, when it comes to education and certifications, I go back to my LinkedIn advice, which is you have to figure out what you want to do. I spent 30 plus hours going through the O2O project management PMP course, and I hated every minute of it. And that's not an indication of the O2O program. The O2O program was fantastic. It's that I hated project management. I hated it. I struggled. I forced myself to make it in 32 hours. I would have been much better served waiting, figuring out what I wanted to do, which ended up being HR consulting and then starting a business, and then moving and taking one of the HR certs instead. It would have paid much better dividends for me. So when it comes to education or certifications, I always tell people, think about what the goal is. Make sure that cert or that degree is listed as a must-have on any job. I see there's a couple certs out there that are very popular that are not a required element or a must-have on any job. And I'm like, you guys are just throwing money down the drain. What's the point, right? If it's not on a must-have or required skill or required experience, required education on a job description, it's not a valid cert. I mean, I guess it's valid, but it doesn't mean anything. So I will just tell people to really think about that. And then if you're a senior leader and you're dialing in here, I taught a course 2 Januaries ago out in Hawaii to a brigade. I had the brigade CSM brought all Sean Kerry, who obviously now is doing amazing things. He brought all of his first sergeants in for a day of training with me. I spent a day teaching them everything about the transition, teaching them LinkedIn, getting their profile set up with the idea that they can go back to their units and provide some kind of educated advice or assistance. And what I'll tell you is that I asked them how many of those first sergeants had ever been in the transition center, and not a single hand went up. Not a single hand. And it makes sense because I never did when I was a first sergeant. And so thankfully, CSM Curry agreed that their homework was to go to the transition center and post a photo of them talking to the people in the transition center. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But I had heard comments muttered about, now I can see why my soldiers are shamming or whatever. And again, if you don't know what goes into the transition, that could be a way that you take it. So I would encourage you as a senior leader to go into the transition center and talk to the TSM, the transition services manager, the education services officer, any of the people in there that work there, to get an idea of how the programs run, the services they offer, and the support they provide, so that you can be more knowledgeable about the program and give back. And so we've got some advice here from Jose saying, don't overwhelm yourself. Yeah, I mean, so at the end of the day, you are expected to have a resume for every job. That's why resumes kind of suck when they come out of TAP, because you are making a resume that is just the looking backwards part of your military career. It's not going to work. You need to tailor your resume to every job, which means you've chosen a job, you're qualified from it because you've talked to people in that field, right? And then you basically look at the job description and you make your resume look like someone that belongs in that job description, right? So you look at the title. If you're going to put a title in your resume, it should be the title of that job. If there's a paragraph that explains what the requirements of the role are, your professional summary at the top should explain how you've done that. You've got your must-haves, you've got your keywords, required skills. Don't have a random list of key skills that mean nothing to them. Make sure the keywords on the job description match the keywords on your resume. And then for every keyword you have in your resume, there should be a bullet down below that talks about when you've done that. Otherwise, it's fluff. And so you have to tailor your resume to every role. So when you come out of your Department of Labor Employment Workshop, which is the 3 days, the 1 day mandatory, 2 days education, don't expect to have a resume that works. Expect to understand the framework of the transition program, what additional resources you're going to get, how you're going to leverage LinkedIn and network, and then how you're going to go out and work to find your success. So there it is. Almost 25 minutes freestyling of TAP. I just gave you a crash course of everything involved in TAP and why having hundreds of thousands of people saying TAP is broken, TAP needs to get fixed, why it isn't so simple. I think they ultimately, my final, that I've said multiple times to Congress and the government is, you either need to put an agency in charge, right? So one agency needs to be in charge, DOD, DOL vets, or the VA. My recommendation was the VA, but one has to be in charge that you can hold them accountable, or they need to have like a kind of like a short-term transition czar, somebody that works under the White House that is leading and coordinating all of these TAP efforts across multiple agencies, someone that understands it and can actually like make it work. And I'll tell you, in my the way I see things is that if they do modernize TAP, we'll get everybody a much better process program, and we'll probably save about $250 million a year in the amount of money being spent on contractors, on bases, and all the overhead and everything else. Like we could do it much more effectively, efficiently using current technology. I mean, would you rather go to the local, resume workshop or federal resume workshop where you get whoever was there? Or would you rather dial into, where you have an industry leading resume writer that actually has done it, worked it, hired from it, like knows everything about it? It's like, would you rather have your transition person at the TAP Center teaching you LinkedIn, or would you rather have me that's lived on it for the last 8 years and used it very effectively, hired from it, everything else like that? And I think that's, in my advice, that's where we've got to go. I've been talking to government. I have testified before Congress multiple times, both the House and the Senate, the HVAC and the Senate Armed Service Committee. I'll tell you, everyone is very passionate and bipartisan about supporting it. But there's some challenges there with, reforming this government agency and getting a shared vision going forward that I hope will be resolved at some point in the not too distant future. So with that, so we've got Christopher saying, I did TAP back in December and it was only 3 days. No, it was not a pilot program. You did not do TAP. You did the DOL employment workshop, which is the 1 day mandatory and the 2 days, 2 days employment workshop. Maybe they squeezed some VA in or whatever, but to check. But the traditional format is a 5-day program. All right. That is it for today. And as I head out, I do want to remind everybody about the great team at DLA Finance. DLA Finance, Defense Logistics Agency, is a Department of Defense agency that supports the warfighter with like world-class supplies, logistics, everything, right? Get everything out to the tip of the spear. Well, DLA Finance makes sure all that happens with the dollars and cents. And so DLA Finance has both direct hire when they're authorized. Again, they were using direct hire and rapid hire authority to bring veterans in for their roles. But right now, since there's a hiring freeze, they have SkillBridge available. So if you are considering a SkillBridge opportunity, there are 5 SkillBridge opportunities. There is an accountant systems. Those require accounting degrees or at least 24 hours of accounting and business law credits. There is a financial analyst, a business analyst, and then a financial liaison roles that do not require degrees, but do require you to explain how you've worked with finance before. And that can be everything from like a COR to a purchasing agent to whatever. But they have roles, SkillBridge opportunities available in, ready for this, Battle Creek, Michigan, Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles territory, Philadelphia, PA, New Cumberland, PA, Columbus, Ohio, Whitehall, Fort Belvoir, Virginia, just outside DC, Richmond, Virginia, and then if you have accounts receivable experience in the military, San Antonio, Texas. Flexible timeframes, flexible duration. If you're interested, just take a look at hiremilitary.us and go ahead and tailor your resume, right? Speak to your specific experience relevant to that role, apply online, and we'll review it. And if you meet the qualifications, we'll get you in for an interview. And their intent, and I can't expect this hiring freeze to last that long, their intent is for every candidate they bring in that does well, that they want to bring him into a GS position. So something to keep in mind, DLA Finance. And with that, have a great weekend, everybody.